I need to say this up front. I wasn't a paranoid wife. I wasn't the type to track my husband's phone or go through his emails. 10 years of marriage, 2 kids, and I trusted Daniel completely. The nanny cam wasn't about him at all. It was about Melissa, our new nanny. She came highly recommended, had great references, and our kids, Emma, 7, and Lucas, 4, seemed to like her. But I'm a mom. I needed to see for myself that my babies were safe when I was at work, so I bought a camera that looked like a charging station and put it on the living room shelf, just for peace of mind. The first week, I'd checked the footage during my lunch break at my accounting firm. Melissa was great. Patient with Lucas's tantrums, helped Emma with homework, kept the house tidy. I felt guilty for doubting her. Then on Wednesday of the second week, I saw something that stopped my heart. Daniel came home. He was supposed to be in Chicago for a 3-day business conference. He's a marketing consultant, travels constantly. I'd kissed him goodbye Monday morning, wouldn't see him until Thursday night. But there he was on my camera footage, walking into our house at 11:47 a.m. on Wednesday. I watched him look around almost cautiously. Melissa had taken the kids to the park. I could see her text about it earlier in the footage. He was alone in our house he wasn't supposed to be in. During a business trip he wasn't supposed to skip out on. My first thought, obviously, was affair. He was meeting someone. But he didn't head upstairs to our bedroom like some cliché. He went straight to my home office. I watched him go through my desk drawers, methodically. Like he was looking for something specific. He pulled out files, took photos of documents with his phone, put everything back carefully, exactly as it had been. Then he went to our bedroom, made a phone call I couldn't hear, and left 20 minutes later. The whole thing took 35 minutes. I sat in my office, staring at my computer screen, feeling like the floor had disappeared beneath me. Daniel came home that night right on schedule, Thursday at 6:30 p.m., pulling his rolling suitcase behind him like he'd just flown in from Chicago. He kissed me hello, asked about my day, played with the kids, acted completely normal. "How was the conference?" I asked, my voice somehow steady. "Boring. You know how these things are. Same presentations, different city." He smiled at me. The same smile I'd loved for 10 years. "I'm glad to be home." I wanted to scream. Instead, I said, "I'm glad you're back." That night, lying next to him in bed, I couldn't sleep. My husband, my partner, the father of my children, the man I'd built a life with, had lied to me, had snuck into our house and gone through my things. But why? What was he looking for? I thought about confronting him, but something stopped me. Maybe it was fear of what I'd hear. Maybe it was the investigator in me. I'm an accountant. I solve puzzles for a living. I needed more information. So the next day, I installed a second camera in my office, and I started watching. Friday, Daniel went to work like normal, but on Monday, another business trip to Denver. And sure enough, Tuesday at 10:15 a.m., there he was again in our house. This time, I watched him photograph my laptop screen, my emails, my client files. He went through my filing cabinet, taking pictures of specific documents. He was methodical, practiced, like he'd done this before. This wasn't an affair. This was something else, something calculated and cold that scared me more than infidelity ever could. Because affairs happen from emotion, from weakness, from human failure, I could maybe understand. But this was intentional, planned. He was gathering information about me, and I had no idea why. I thought about everything he'd photographed, my client accounts, my business correspondence, financial records from the firm. What could he possibly want with that? Then the worst thought hit me. Was he trying to steal from me? From my clients? Was my husband some kind of criminal I'd never known? That night, he came home from Denver, and I made dinner, and we talked about the kids' upcoming parent-teacher conferences, and I wanted to throw up. How do you eat spaghetti with someone who's betraying you in ways you don't even understand yet? After the kids went to bed, I excused myself and locked myself in the bathroom. I pulled up the footage again on my phone and watched my husband violate my privacy, my trust, my entire marriage. And I made a decision. I wasn't going to confront him yet. I was going to watch, collect evidence, figure out exactly what he was doing before I destroyed our family by accusing him. For 3 weeks, I became someone I didn't recognize, a spy in my own marriage. Every business trip meant more footage of Daniel searching my office. Every night, I'd review what he'd photographed, trying to find a pattern. Trying to understand, I barely slept, barely ate. I smiled at him over breakfast and felt like a stranger. He'd tell me about his trips and I'd nod along, knowing he was lying, knowing he'd been in our house, in my space, taking God knows what. My friend Rachel asked if I was okay. "You look exhausted," she said. "Just work stress," I lied. Because how do you explain that your husband is systematically going through your life for reasons you can't comprehend? By week 3, I had hours of footage. I documented every visit, every photograph document, every phone call he made in our bedroom. I had evidence. But evidence of what? That's when I finally sat down and actually looked at what he'd been photographing. Really looked. Made a list of every document, every file, every email. And I saw it. They all connected to one person, Richard Chen, my business partner at the firm. Every single thing Daniel had photographed related to Richard's clients, Richard's accounts, Richard's deals. My husband wasn't investigating me. He was investigating my business partner. Once I realized Daniel was focused on Richard, everything changed. The fear didn't go away. My husband was still lying to me, still sneaking around. But now I had a direction to look. I started paying attention to Richard at work. We'd been partners for 5 years, built the firm from nothing. He was my friend, or so I thought. We had lunch together twice a week. Our families did barbecues in the summer. His wife, Lauren, and I took a yoga class together. But now I looked at him differently. What would make my husband secretly investigate him? Richard was smooth, successful, always had the biggest clients, closed the most deals. I'd admired that about him. Now I wondered if I'd been naive. I couldn't ask Daniel what was going on. That would reveal I knew about his break-ins. So I decided to do my own investigating. If Daniel was looking at Richard's files, I'd look at them too. I started staying late at the office, pulling Richard's client accounts after everyone left. At first, nothing seemed wrong. Numbers added up. Invoices matched deposits. Everything looked clean. But then I noticed something. Several of his biggest clients had unusual payment structures. Money would come in, get moved between accounts, and eventually end up somewhere. The trail got murky. As an accountant, I knew what clean books looked like. These weren't clean. They were polished to look clean. There's a difference. I dug deeper. Pulled bank records I technically shouldn't have accessed, but I had partner privileges, and I was starting to panic. Richard was doing something with client funds. Skimming? Embezzling? I couldn't tell yet, but money was definitely moving in ways it shouldn't. The worst part, some of those accounts had my signature on them, my approval. Because Richard would bring me documents to sign, tell me they were routine account transfers, and I'd sign them trusting my partner. Had he been using me as cover? At home, Daniel announced another business trip. Atlanta this time. 3 days. Again? I said, trying to keep my voice normal. That's the 4th trip this month. I know. He pulled me close, kissed my forehead. This project is intense, but it'll slow down soon. I promise. I wanted to ask him who he was on the phone with during his break-ins. Wanted to ask why he was photographing evidence of Richard's crimes, because I was now sure they were crimes. Wanted to ask why he didn't just tell me. Instead, I said, "Be safe. Text me when you land." He would text me, from wherever he actually was, probably our house. Sure enough, day 2 of his Atlanta trip, my camera alert went off. Daniel, in our house, in my office. But this time was different. This time, he had someone with him, a woman, mid-40s, professional suit, carrying a briefcase. They stood in my office and she took her own photos of my files while Daniel kept watch. My heart was racing so hard I thought I might pass out. This wasn't just him anymore. He had an accomplice. Was this an affair after all? No. She was photographing documents, not touching him. They were working together, but on what? And why? I watched them leave together, got a screenshot of her face, ran it through a reverse image search on my lunch break. Nothing came up. She was a ghost. That night, I did something I'm not proud of. I went through Daniel's laptop while he was out with the kids. I'd never invaded his privacy before. I'd never needed to. But desperate times make you desperate. His search history had been cleared. His emails were mostly work stuff and spam. But then I found a folder buried in his documents, RC Investigation, RC Richard Chen. Inside were dozens of files, scanned documents, spreadsheets, photographs of the same files he'd been taking from my office, and a PDF labeled Report Draft, Do Not Share. I opened it. It was a detailed analysis of Richard's financial activities: money laundering, client fund misappropriation, tax fraud, and it named me as a potential co-conspirator because of my signatures on key documents. I had to read that sentence 3 times. Co-conspirator. The report said investigators couldn't determine if I was involved or a pawn. Either way, when this came out, my career was over, my reputation destroyed, possibly prison time. Richard was setting me up, and somehow Daniel knew. The document was addressed to someone named Jennifer Marks. I searched her. She was a defense attorney specializing in white-collar crime. My husband had hired a lawyer because my business partner was framing me for financial crimes. I should have felt relieved. He was trying to help me. But all I felt was rage. He'd been lying to me for weeks. Sneaking around, treating me like I couldn't handle the truth about my own life. I kept reading. The report outlined everything Richard had done, how he'd used my credentials and signatures to move money, how he'd carefully constructed a paper trail that pointed to me. If the authorities investigated, when they investigated, I'd look guilty. There was a timeline, notes about when Daniel first suspected something was wrong. 3 months ago, he'd overheard Richard on the phone talking about making sure Kate's name is all over it. Kate. Me? Daniel had been investigating for 3 months. 3 months of lying. 3 months of secret meetings and photographed documents and treating me like I was too fragile to know my own partner was destroying me. The next page was a strategy document. They were building a case against Richard. Collecting evidence to show I was innocent. Planning to present everything to the authorities before Richard could. The woman in the suit was Jennifer Marks, the defense attorney, Daniel's secret partner in protecting me. I sat there with his laptop open, my hands shaking, feeling too many things at once. Grateful that he was trying to save me. Furious that he'd hidden it. Terrified of what Richard had done. Betrayed that my husband thought I couldn't handle the truth. I heard the garage door opening. Daniel home with the kids. I closed his laptop, put it back exactly where I'd found it, and went downstairs to greet my family like nothing was wrong. "Mommy, we got ice cream!" Lucas launched himself at me, chocolate smeared on his face. "Did you?" I hugged him, looked over his head at Daniel, my husband, my liar, my protector. "Special treat," Daniel said, smiling. That same easy smile that had been hiding so much. That night, after the kids were asleep, I made my decision. Tomorrow I was confronting him. No more waiting, no more watching. We were going to talk about Richard, about the investigation, about every lie he'd told me, and then we were going to figure out if our marriage could survive what he'd done. I waited until Saturday morning. The kids had a birthday party, Emma's friend Sophie. Daniel was supposed to drive them. "Actually," I said at breakfast, "I'll take them. You stay home. We need to talk." Something in my voice made him look up sharply. "About what?" "I'll tell you when I get back." I dropped Emma and Lucas at the party and drove around for 15 minutes, trying to calm down, trying to figure out what to say. How do you confront someone about something you discovered by spying? How do you admit you've been watching them without permission while being angry they've been lying without permission? When I got home, Daniel was sitting at the kitchen table, hands folded, looking like he was about to be interrogated. He knew something was coming. I sat across from him and pulled out my phone, opened the Nanny cam footage, turned the screen toward him. Want to tell me about your business trip to Chicago? I watched the color drain from his face as he saw himself on camera, going through my office. He closed his eyes. Kate, don't. My voice was shaking. Don't say my name like that, like you're the victim here. You've been lying to me for 3 months, sneaking into our house, going through my things, working with some lawyer behind my back. So no, you don't get to Kate me. I was trying to protect you. By lying? By treating me like I'm too stupid to know my own business partner is a criminal? He flinched. I didn't think you were stupid. I thought you'd panic. I thought... He ran his hands through his hair. Richard is dangerous, Kate. He's been embezzling from clients, laundering money, and setting you up to take the fall. I found out by accident, overheard him on a phone call, and when I started looking into it, I realized how bad it was, how bad it is. Your signature is all over his crimes. I know, I read your report. His head snapped up. You how? I went through your laptop. Guess we're both invading privacy now. Silence, heavy and awful. You should have told me, I said, quieter now. The second you suspected something, you should have told me. I wanted to be sure first. I didn't want to blow up your partnership, your business, your friendship with Richard and Lauren based on a hunch. So instead, you blew up our marriage. Our marriage isn't... He stopped. Is that what this is? Are we done? I didn't answer because I didn't know. 3 months of lies, 3 months of fake business trips and secret investigations, and treating me like a child who needed protecting instead of a partner who deserved the truth. When were you going to tell me? I asked. When the FBI showed up at our door? When Richard made his move? Or were you just going to handle everything yourself and tell me after it was over? Jennifer, the attorney, she advised me not to tell you. Said if Richard suspected you knew anything, he might accelerate his plans. Might destroy evidence. We needed to gather enough proof first. Jennifer, your partner in all this. I heard the bitterness in my voice. Is that who you've been meeting during your fake trips? Yes, at her office, building the case against Richard. Kate, we have everything now. Enough to clear you completely and put him away. I was going to tell you this weekend, I swear. This weekend? How convenient. Right after I caught you. I didn't know you'd caught me. Because you were too busy lying. I was standing now, pacing. Do you understand what you've done? For 3 months, I've been sleeping next to you, raising our kids with you, building our life with you, and you've been keeping this massive secret, making decisions about my career, my reputation, my future without including me. I was trying to save you. I didn't need saving. I needed honesty. I needed my husband to trust me enough to tell me the truth. Daniel stood too, his face flushed. You want honesty? Fine. I didn't tell you because I was terrified you'd confront Richard before we had enough evidence, that you'd tip him off and he'd disappear or destroy everything, or worse, he'd find some way to implicate you even more. I didn't tell you because I couldn't risk losing you. You and the kids, you're everything to me. And I couldn't. I couldn't watch you go to prison for something he did. His voice cracked on the last words. I felt tears on my face. You thought I'd screw it up. No, God, no. I thought you'd try to fix it yourself because that's who you are. You're brave and you're righteous, and you'd march right up to Richard and demand answers, and he'd know. He'd know we were onto him. So you protected me by lying to me. Yes, and I know that was wrong. I know I should have trusted you. But Kate, he was setting you up. Every document he had you sign, every account he put your name on, it was all to make you look guilty. If this goes to trial, they'll say you were in on it. They'll say you knowingly participated, and I couldn't. His voice broke again. I couldn't let that happen. We stood there in our kitchen, the same kitchen where we'd made breakfast for our kids that morning, and I felt like I was looking at a stranger. Do you have any idea how it felt? I said quietly. Watching you sneak into our house, watching you go through my things, thinking you were betraying me? For 3 weeks, I thought my marriage was over. I thought you were someone I didn't know. I am someone you know. I'm your husband who made a terrible choice trying to protect you. It wasn't your choice to make alone. I know. You're right. I know. We'd had arguments before, disagreements about money, about parenting, about whose turn it was to deal with Emma's homework meltdowns. But this was different. This was fundamental. This was about whether we were partners or whether he saw me as someone who needed managing. Show me everything, I said finally. The whole case. Every piece of evidence, Jennifer's number, all of it. Okay, yes, of course. And then we're going to decide together what to do next. Not you and Jennifer, not you protecting me. Us, together. Like we should have been from the start. He nodded, looking exhausted and relieved and terrified all at once. And Daniel, we're going to therapy, because I don't know how to trust you right now, and I don't know if I can forgive this, but I'm willing to try. For us, for the kids. But only if you promise, really promise, that you'll never hide something like this from me again. I promise. I swear to you, Kate. Never again. I wanted to believe him. I wanted to hug him and cry and pretend the last 3 months hadn't happened. But trust doesn't work that way. It's not a switch you flip back on. So instead, I said, let's see the files. And then you're going to call Jennifer and tell her I'm part of this now. Full partner. No more secrets. He pulled out his laptop with shaking hands. And we got to work. Jennifer Marks came to our house that afternoon. She was the woman from my camera footage, late 40s, sharp eyes, the kind of presence that made you sit up straighter. She shook my hand and said, I'm sorry you were kept out of this. I advised it, and I was wrong. I liked her immediately for that. We spent 3 hours going through everything. Richard had been embezzling for at least 2 years, skimming from client accounts and using a complex web of shell companies to hide the money. He'd systematically put my name and signature on transactions that would make me look complicit. If his scheme had been discovered, I'd have been the obvious suspect, the partner who handled the accounts, the one whose credentials authorized the transfers. He was setting up his exit, Jennifer explained. When the authorities came looking, he'd disappear and you'd take the fall. Classic scapegoat strategy. My stomach turned. I trusted him. We built this firm together. That's what made you perfect, she said, not unkindly. Your trust, your signature, your reputation. He used all of it. Daniel had collected enough evidence to prove I was innocent. Emails where Richard had misled me, documents showing he'd forged my initials on some transfers, testimony from a bank employee he'd bribed who was willing to turn state's evidence. The case against Richard was solid. The case clearing me was even better. When do we go to the authorities? I asked. Monday, Jennifer said. I've been coordinating with the FBI. They'll arrest Richard at the office. You'll need to be there, act normal until they arrive. The thought of facing Richard on Monday made me feel sick, but I nodded. After Jennifer left, Daniel and I sat in exhausted silence. Thank you, I said finally, for protecting me. Even though you did it wrong. He gave me a weak smile. You're welcome, and I'm sorry. For all of it. I'm sorry, too, for going through your stuff, for not confronting you sooner, I stopped. For installing the nanny cam in the first place. If I hadn't been spying on Melissa, I never would have caught you, and we'd be walking into Monday blind. Guess we both learned something about trust, he said. Monday morning felt surreal. I got dressed for work, kissed my kids goodbye, acted like it was a normal day. Daniel squeezed my hand before I left. You've got this, he whispered. At the office, Richard was already there, coffee in hand, smiling. "Morning, Kate. Ready for the Harrison meeting at 10? "Absolutely," I said, my voice steady. "Let me just grab my files." At 9:47 a.m., 3 FBI agents walked through our door. I won't describe the whole arrest. It's not something I want to relive in detail, but I will say this. Richard didn't go quietly. He accused me of everything: embezzlement, fraud, conspiracy. He screamed that I was setting him up, that I'd been stealing from clients for years. The agents already knew better. Jennifer had briefed them. They'd seen our evidence. They took him away in handcuffs. The next few weeks were brutal. Our firm made headlines. Clients panicked. The FBI investigation confirmed Richard's crimes and my innocence, but that didn't stop people from speculating. Some clients left anyway. The business took a hit, but I still had my license, my freedom, my family. Daniel and I started therapy the following week. Dr. Morrison was patient and direct, exactly what we needed. We talked about trust, about partnership, about the fact that protecting someone doesn't mean controlling their narrative. "You treated your wife like a client," Dr. Morrison told Daniel during one session. "Someone who needed a lawyer handling everything behind the scenes. But she's not your client. She's your partner. Partners share information, share decisions, share burdens." Daniel cried during that session. So did I. It took months. There were hard conversations. Nights when I'd wake up angry all over again. Times when Daniel would apologize for the 100th time, and I'd have to remind him that healing isn't linear. But slowly, we rebuilt. He showed me every email, every calendar invite, every business trip planned for real this time. Gave me passwords. Complete transparency. At first it felt performative, like he was proving something. Eventually, it just felt like marriage. Sharing your life with someone means sharing all of it. I rebuilt the firm too, rebranded, brought in new partners who understood what transparency meant. Several of our old clients came back when they saw we were committed to doing things right. Last week was our anniversary, 11 years. We took the kids to the same restaurant where Daniel proposed. "Remember when you trusted me?" he joked, then immediately winced. "Sorry, too soon?" "Always going to be too soon for that joke," I said. But I was smiling. Emma asked why we were being weird, and Lucas spilled his soda, and it was normal and chaotic and ours. That night, after the kids were asleep, Daniel asked if I'd ever really forgiven him. I thought about it. Honest answer? Most days. Some days I'm still angry, but I'm choosing us anyway. "Fair enough," he said. "I'll take it." Here's what I learned. Marriage isn't about never breaking trust. It's about what you do after trust breaks. Do you walk away, or do you do the hard work of rebuilding? There's no right answer. For us, rebuilding was worth it. For someone else, it might not be. The nanny cam is still there, by the way, not because I don't trust Melissa. She was amazing through everything, kept the kids stable when their parents were falling apart. It's there because I've learned that seeing the truth, even when it's uncomfortable, is better than living in carefully constructed ignorance. Richard took a plea deal, 7 years for fraud and embezzlement. His wife, Lauren, filed for divorce. I sent her flowers with a card that just said, "I'm sorry." She never responded. I don't blame her. Daniel doesn't take business trips anymore. He restructured his work to be local, not because I don't trust him, but because we both realized that the traveling was a crutch, an excuse to avoid being present. Now he's present, even when it's hard. We're not perfect. We still argue. We still have moments where the past comes up and we have to work through it again. But we're here, together, honest. And honestly, that's enough. If your partner kept a major secret to protect you, could you forgive them? What would it take to rebuild that trust? Share your thoughts below, because sometimes the hardest question isn't whether to stay or go, but how to love someone after they've broken your trust by trying to save you.